A stovepipe in the mud. Normandy, 10 July 1944, 06:47 a.m. The Normandy air smells of wet earth, cordite, and rotting apples. Dawn fog clings to the hedgerows like a shroud. 19-year-old Private First Class Robert L. Smith, 2nd Infantry Division, crouches in a waterlogged ditch just outside St. Lo. His uniform is soaked through, his fingers numb. In his hands is a ridiculous-looking piece of plumbing, a 60-inch steel tube, open at both ends, with a wooden shoulder stock and 2 pistol grips. Painted olive drab, it weighs 9 pounds empty. The men behind him call it the stovepipe. Others, crueler, call it a plumber's nightmare. They laugh when they say it. Smith isn't laughing. 50 yards away, across the sunken lane, a Tiger I grinds forward through the mist. 88 tons of steel, 100mm frontal armor, sloped like a barn roof. Long 88mm gun already traversing toward the American line. The ground trembles with every track plate. German infantry trot alongside, using the tank as a moving wall. Smith's loader, Private First Class Frank Kwiatek, slaps a rocket into the rear of the tube. The M6A1 rocket looks like a cartoon bomb. Black powder tail fins, a blunt nose, 3.4 pounds of high explosive wrapped around a copper cone. Everyone in the platoon swore these things would bounce off a Tiger armor like golf balls off a bulldozer. The Tiger's turret stopped moving. The big gun is pointing straight at the hedgerow where Company E is pinned.
Smith flicks the safety off. His breath fogs in the cold. Kwiatek slams the 2 wires onto the terminals. The Tiger's commander pops his hatch for a better look, a fatal habit in Normandy. Smith stands up in plain view, knees shaking, shoulders the tube like it's a broom handle, and squeezes. Whoosh! Crack! The rocket streaks out in a shower of sparks and white smoke, wobbling slightly, then straightens and hits the Tiger dead center on the glacis plate. For half a heartbeat, nothing. Then the shaped charge erupts. A jet of molten copper moving at 25,000 feet per second punches through the 100mm plate as if it were plywood. Secondary explosions ripple inside the hull. Flames belch from every hatch. The Tiger slews sideways, tracks still turning, and crashes into the opposite hedgerow, burning fiercely. The German infantry freeze, staring at their invincible tank, now a flaming coffin. Smith drops back into the ditch, ears ringing, the smell of burnt powder in his nose. Kwiatek looks at him, wide-eyed. Jesus Christ, Smitty, it actually worked! Across the field, another Tiger reverses hard, trying to back out of the killing ground. Somewhere behind Smith, a sergeant starts laughing, the hysterical, relieved laugh of a man who just realized the joke was on the Germans all along. But the laughter dies fast, because now every panzer crew in Normandy knows the American infantry are carrying something that can kill a Tiger from any angle. And the hunters have just become the hunted.
The joke that wasn't funny anymore. Fort Benning, Georgia, spring 1942. 18 months earlier, nobody believed in the stovepipe at all. You're standing on a dusty parade ground at Fort Benning, Georgia, May 1942. The sun is already brutal at 10 in the morning. A skinny lieutenant colonel named Leslie Skinner, everyone just calls him the mad scientist, drags a length of drainage pipe out of the back of a jeep. Behind him, 2 ordnance officers wrestle with what looks like a child's toy rocket on a stick. A crowd of skeptical infantry officers and bored tankers and 1 very annoyed brigadier general watches in silence. Skinner shoulders the pipe like it's a shotgun, aims at a wrecked Japanese Type 95 Hago tank, dragged all the way from the Philippines for the occasion, and fires. The rocket wobbles, corkscrews, then slams into the little tank's turret ring. A dull thud, a puff of smoke. The turret lifts 6 inches and drops back crooked.
Everyone blinks. The general spits tobacco juice. "That all you got, son?" Skinner, grinning like a lunatic, waves over a sergeant with a second rocket. This one has a new markings. M6 shaped charge warhead. Same pipe, same ridiculous launch. He fires again. This time the Hoggo's turret disappears in a white flash. When the smoke clears, there's a fist-sized hole punched clean through the 12mm turret roof, and the inside of the tank is on fire. Dead silence. Then a captain in the back mutters, "Hell, my grandmother could carry that thing." Laughter ripples through the crowd, nervous, disbelieving laughter. The weapon has no name yet. Someone shouts, "Looks like a goddamn bazooka!" After the trombone-like instrument comedian Bob Burns plays on the radio. The name sticks instantly. Within weeks, the Army orders 5,000 of them. The contract goes to a company that normally makes flashlights. Production photos show women on assembly lines sliding rockets into tubes the way they once slid lipstick into cases. The rockets are so new the paint is still wet when they're crated. Instructors at Benning try to teach GIs how to use it. The backblast is a 20-foot tongue of flame. Half the trainees singe their eyebrows the first week. The rocket has no guidance. It flies wherever the hell it feels like. Range is 150 yards on a good day with a tailwind.
One grizzled sergeant watching a private miss the broad side of a barn at 50 paces growls, "Boys, this thing couldn't hit the ocean if you fired it off a pier." The weapon ships to North Africa in late 1942 anyway. In Tunisia, the first combat reports come back. Ineffective against frontal armor of Panzermark IV at ranges over 50 yards. Rocket frequently failed to detonate. Backblast gave away position, crews killed by return fire. The laughter travels all the way to the Pentagon. By the time the 2.36-inch bazooka reaches England in preparation for D-Day, it is the most mocked weapon in the U.S. Army inventory. GIs paint cartoons on the tubes, a rabbit getting chased by a turtle labeled 88 millimeters. One rocket team in the 29th Division stencils "Plumber's Nightmare" in white letters and draws little exploding toilets all over the shield. They laugh because the alternative is admitting they're about to march into France armed with something that looks like scrap metal. But somewhere in a warehouse in Cheltenham, England, a quiet ordnance captain named Edward Ewell, the man who literally designed the bazooka on his kitchen table, quietly ships out the new M6A3 rocket with an improved fuse and a heavier-shaped charge liner. No one tells the infantry. They'll find out soon enough, and when they do, the laughter will stop dead.
First Blood, Sicily, 11 July 1943, 0340 hours, Jella Beachhead. You taste salt spray and diesel smoke. The night is blacker than sin. Sergeant Angelo Chick Morone, 45th Infantry Division, crawls through coarse sand littered with shredded landing-cracked planking. Behind him, his loader, Private Dominic DeLuca, drags 2 bazooka rockets in a burlap sack like they're loaves of bread. American paratroopers from the 505th are scattered inland, cut off, screaming for help on the radio. A German counterattack is rolling down the Piano Lupo Road. 3 Panzer IVs from the Hermann Göring Division, followed by a company of Panzer Grenadiers. The first tank's searchlight sweeps the dunes. Machine gun tracers stitch the night. Morone's platoon is down to 8 men. Their only anti-tank weapon is the stovepipe that everyone back at Fort Bragg swore was junk. Morone hisses, "Load me." DeLuca shoves a rocket in. The fins scrape metal. Morone crawls forward on his belly until the lead Panzer IV is less than 70 yards away, close enough to see the white Balkenkreuz on the turret side. The tank's coaxial MG-34 opens up. Sand explodes around Morone's helmet. He rises to one knee, shoulder aching from the tube's weight, and fires. The rocket arcs glowing orange and smacks the Panzer just below the driver's visor. Nothing. Dud.
The tank keeps coming, 30 yards now. DeLuca is already slapping the second rocket in. Mortain can feel the heat of the exhaust wash over him. He fires again. This time, the warhead works. A jet of flame shoots out the far side of the hull. The Panzer jerks to a halt. Hatches pop. Crewmen tumble out on fire, screaming in German. The second and third tanks swing their turrets toward the muzzle flash. Mortain and DeLuca dive into a shell crater as 75mm shells detonate overhead. But the spell is broken. The German infantry hesitate. The remaining tanks reverse, afraid to close. By dawn, the beachhead holds. Word spreads up and down the line like wildfire. The goddamn bazooka actually worked. A Stars and Stripes reporter scribbles in his notebook, "A $19 weapon just killed a 40 tons of German steel." Back in England, ordnance officers quietly double the production order. In Sicily, GIs stop painting jokes on their tubes. They start painting kill rings instead. But North Africa and Sicily were only light and medium tanks. Normandy will be different. Normandy has tigers. And tigers don't die easy.
The Tiger Myth. Normandy. Late June 1944. Somewhere west of Caen. You've never felt fear like this. It's not the artillery. It's not the machine guns. It's the sound. A low, metallic thunder that rolls across the wheat fields long before you see the tank itself. Then it appears, hull down behind a stone wall, only the turret and gun visible, like a castle keep on tracks. 88 tons, 120mm frontal armor on the turret, sloped plates that make Allied 75mm shells ricochet into the sky with the sound like church bells. The men of the 101st Airborne, veterans of D-Day, now fighting as infantry near Carentan, watch a single Tiger I knock out 5 Shermans in 90 seconds. The last Sherman brews up so violently the turret flips 20 feet into the air. A lieutenant screams over the radio, "Where the hell are our tank destroyers?" Answer comes back, "Burning." That night, in a chateau cellar lit by a single candle, a shaken commander tells his platoon leaders, "Forget the bazooka, it's useless against those monsters. Save it for trucks." The myth spreads faster than dysentery.
Tigers are invincible from the front. You need a 90mm gun or air support. Bazooka rounds just annoy them. Men start leaving their tubes behind to carry extra grenades. Some trade them to rear echelon cooks for cigarettes. In the 2nd Armored Division sector, a bold or suicidal bazooka team tries anyway. They score 3 hits on a Tiger's front plate near Saint-Jean-de-Daye. 3 bright sparks, 3 ricochets. The Tiger turns its turret with lazy contempt and vaporizes them with 1 HE round. The laughter comes back, bitter now. Plumber's nightmare, my ass. More like plumber's wet dream because it ain't worth piss. German propaganda leaflets flutter down the next morning. Cartoons of GIs running from Tigers while holding broken stovepipes. Morale in the hedgerows is cracking. But a handful of men, ordnance tech reps and a few stubborn infantry lieutenants know something the average dogface doesn't. The improved M6A3 and brand new M6A5 rockets with the heavier pentalite charge and the ones quietly shipped over in June have finally reached the front. They just haven't been used against a Tiger yet. All it will take is 1 shot, in the right hands, at the right angle. And 19-year-old Robert Smith, the kid from the 1st section, is about to get his chance.
The shot that changed everything. 10 July 1944, 06:47 a.m., the sunken lane outside Saint-Lô. You are there again, exactly where we began. Private Robert Smith's heart is hammering so hard he can feel it in his teeth. The Tiger is 50 yards away and closing, its long gun already depressed, hunting. Smith's platoon leader, Lieutenant Fisk, is screaming himself hoarse. "Somebody stop that son of a bitch!" Everyone else is face down in the mud, praying. Smith stands up. Time slows. He remembers the range card taped inside his helmet. Effective range 100 to 150 yards against moving targets. Side or rear shots preferred. Frontal hits possible below 50 yards with M6A5 warhead. 50 yards. He's inside the envelope. The loader, Frank Kuviatek, is shaking so badly he almost drops the rocket. The new M6A5 slides home with a metallic clack. Smith feels the two contact wires slap against his wrist. The Tiger's commander is still half out of the cupola, binoculars raised, scanning the hedgerow for the Shermans he thinks are the Americans' must-have. He never looks down at the ditch. Smith rests the tube on the bank, cheek welded to the wooden stock, left hand steadying the muzzle. The front sight is a crude stamped blade. The rear sight is just a bent piece of wire. He lines the blade up on the Tiger's lower glasses plate, right where the driver's hatch meets the nose. He exhales. Squeezes. The rocket leaves the tube with a deafening whoosh and a geyser of flame that scorches the grass behind him. For an instant, the rocket's tail is a comet in the gray dawn. It flies dead straight. Impact. A blinding white flash. A jet of orange fire punches clean through the 100-millimeter plate. Inside the Tiger, the molten copper jet slices through the driver, the radio operator, the transmission, and exits the engine deck in a shower of sparks. Secondary explosions begin immediately. First, the ready ammunition in the turret basket. Then, the main fuel tanks. The Tiger's turret hatches blow open like champagne corks. Flames roar 30 feet high.
The massive tank shudders once, twice, then settles on its suspension, burning with a sound like a giant blowtorch. Silence falls over the battlefield, broken only by the crackle of burning rubber and the screams of the crew who didn't make it out. Every American in the hedgerow is on his feet now, staring. Lieutenant Fisk's mouth is actually hanging open. Then someone starts cheering. Then the whole company. Then the entire battalion line. Smith just slides back into the ditch, legs finally giving out. Kuviatek is pounding his back, laughing and crying at the same time. Across the field, the second Tiger throws itself into reverse so violently it snaps a track. The German infantry break and run. By noon, the story has raced up and down the Normandy front faster than a P-47. One GI with a bazooka just kill the Tiger. Clean. Frontal shot. 50 yards. Within 48 hours, every bazooka tube that had been traded for cigarettes is back in American hands. Men who mocked the weapon are now begging ordnance for extra rockets. German tank crews start welding spare track links and logs to their glacis plates in desperate attempts to pre-detonate shape charges. Panzer commanders stop popping hatches. They button up and sweat inside 120-degree steel boxes. And somewhere in a forward command post, General Omar Bradley picks up a field telephone and says the words that will echo through the rest of the campaign. Tell every infantry regiment, your best tank killer is already in your TO&E. Issue every bazooka team hunting licenses. The plumber's nightmare just became the Tiger's worst dream.
The Hunters, Normandy, late July through August 1944. Now the roles reverse. You're in the turret of Tiger 312, 3rd Company, Schwer Panzerabteilung 506, rolling through a narrow bocage lane near Mortain. The commander, Oberleutnant Karl-Heinz Weber, hasn't opened his hatch in 4 days. He peers through sweat-fogged periscopes, whispering, "Achtung, bazookas." Every hedgerow looks the same. Every orchard hides death. Behind every stone wall could be a 19-year-old American boys with stovepipes on their shoulders and murder in their eyes.
On 7 August 1944, the Germans launch Operation Lüttich, Hitler's last desperate counterattack at Mortain. 5 panzer divisions slam into the American line. They run straight into hell. Near the village of Lemessine-Adelaide, a single bazooka team from the 30th Infantry Division, Corporal John D. Kelly and Raymond Searles, stalk 3 tigers through a fog-shrouded apple orchard. Kelly works his way to within 30 yards of the rearmost tiger, stands in the open like a ghost, and fires twice. 2 rockets, 2 engine deck penetrations, 2 burning tigers. The 3rd tiger spins in panic, trying to bring its gun to bear on an enemy it can't even see. Kelly walks calmly around the flank and puts a 3rd rocket through the thin side armor. 3 tigers, 90 seconds, 1 man. Kelly will earn the Medal of Honor. Posthumously, he dies covering the withdrawal of his team. But his kind of courage is no longer rare.
In the Falaise pocket, bazooka teams hunt in pairs and trios, moving through the tall grass like Apaches. They let the lead tanks pass, then rise up behind the column and kill the recovery vehicles and supply trucks first, trapping the panzers. Panzer crews begin refusing orders to advance without massive infantry screens. When the infantry can't keep up, the tanks sit still and die. By the end of August, the Germans have lost over 400 tanks and assault guns in Normandy. More than half fall to bazookas, tank destroyers, fighter bombers, and artillery combined. But the shaped charge rocket has become the symbol. A captured German panzer commander, asked why his battalion retreated from a village held by only a company-strength Americans, answers bitterly, "Because every one of those verdammte Amis now carries a Panzerbuchse in his pocket." The word bazooka enters the German language as a verb, bazookiert, past tense of to be bazooked. Back in the American lines, the tubes no longer have cartoon rabbits painted on them. They have tiger silhouettes, some with fangs, some on fire. And every silhouette has a neat, molten hole punched right through the heart.
It's over. The Germans know it, the GIs know it, even the bazooka knows it. By the time the hedgerows are a distant memory, the weapon has evolved again. The 1945 brings the super bazooka, the 3.5-inch M20, aluminum tube, twice the penetration, 300-yard range. But the old 2.36-inch stovepipe refuses to retire. It's lighter, cheaper, and there are millions of rockets already in the pipeline. So it keeps killing. On the Siegfried Line, bazooka men ride on the backs of Shermans like cavalry, leaping off to stock concrete pillboxes. One shaped charge rocket through an embrasure turns a fortress into a crematorium. In the Hurtgen forest, where trees burst into splinters and men freeze to death between shell bursts, bazooka teams become the only reliable way to stop a panther that suddenly appears out of the fog 30 yards away. In the Bulge, during the freezing hell of December 1944, a 19-year-old private from the 82nd Airborne named Frederick C. Murphy stands alone on a snow-covered ridge near Krinkelt, armed with nothing but a stovepipe and 5 rockets. He knocks out 3 Panzer IVs and a King Tiger before a mortar fragment takes his life. They pinned the Medal of Honor on his coffin. By spring 1945, German tank crews are stripping spare track, sandbags, bed frames, anything to hang on their hulls. They call it Schürzen, but the Americans have a new name for it, bazooka plates. It rarely works. When Patton's Third Army reaches the Rhine, a bazooka team from the 5th Infantry Division fires across the river at a retreating tiger on the far bank, 640 yards away. Impossible range. The rocket arcs high, drops like a mortar bomb, and by sheer luck punches through the thin engine deck. The tiger burns on the eastern shore while the GIs cheer like it's the 4th of July. The laughter that began in Fort Benning in 1942, the cruel, disbelieving laughter, is now coming from the other side, of the Rhine to the Elbe.
In April 1945, outside Berlin, Red Army soldiers capture a column of brand-new Tiger IIs abandoned beside the road. Every single one has a neat, molten hole in the side or rear. The Soviet colonel examining them asks his translator what weapon did this. The translator shrugs. "Amerikansky bazooka." The colonel spits. "Then God help us when we meet the Americans." But they never will. The war in Europe ends 2 weeks later. In the final tally, the humble stovepipe, the plumber's nightmare, the joke weapon nobody wanted, is credited with destroying or disabling more German tanks than any other single infantry weapon in the U.S. Army. And somewhere, in a quiet moment between victory parades, an old sergeant looks at the battered tube leaning in the corner of a barracks and finally says what every GI has been thinking for a year. Funny thing about jokes, sometimes the punchline kills you. Fade to black.